call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that all commissioners are present, and that we did meet in executive session to discuss matters of personnel and real estate. I would note that we're coming up on Veterans Day, and I'm very thankful to have two members of our board who are veterans, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Napper. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence, and the pledge will be co-led by our two veterans, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Napper.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everybody. Start off with petitions, complaints, suggestions. Anybody wish to address the board? Mr. Dietrich?
Just came to my mind as I was here. Again, I know I've addressed the board before, but coming Crooked Hill as it turns into Continental, so essentially this side of that Crooked Hill, having some type of traffic control on that road would be good. And I don't know where we're standing on it, but I know we were talking about the lines, or I know we talked before that this state or somebody, we were looking at a study to see if perhaps putting the line down the middle would help to control that. I know Chief Martin had spoken to that at one point, but I would just bring that to your attention again, that is clearly, I witnessed an awful lot of elevated rates of speed going down Crooked Hill up to the Margaret's Grove development.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is that they're doing a new study. They will be doing a new study. I had talked to the chief about that about a month ago. I haven't heard anything back on it, but they had done a study a few years ago, and the conclusion was they didn't really need to do anything, and I asked them to take another look at it.
Yeah, I've been fighting for this for the past 4 years, quite honestly. And this part of it is, having stood there and with the knowledge that four-way, each corner really, or at least two of them, get used as a bus stop regularly, both in the morning and the afternoon.
You're referring to there at Chatham and like Continental?
No, where Continental splits from Crooked Hill, where Continental turns into, or Crooked Hill turns into Continental,
yes,
right at Deer Path Road.
Intersection of Chatham, perhaps, or you're talking about one further down, but anyhow.
Yeah, right at Deer Path Road. So I'm talking just up from that one. So that gets used as a bus stop. I mean, I see children who I assume are going to parochial school lined up there as early as 6:30, 6:45 in the morning when it's now dark at that hour. And we have no traffic control from Rockfall all the way through Margaret's Grove. So I agree, we did take a step to paint 25 miles per hour slow. That's not enough. So Commissioner Rothrock, I will work with you on this in hopes of, I would like to see a four-way stop there, just to calm people down. You already have a stop sign going eastbound on Deer Path and westbound on, well, I guess it's still Deer Path Road. So you have stop signs there, but I would like to see some coming north and southbound.
Right, and I agree with the concerns with the bus stops, and I would go further to say, I think 3 or 4 years ago, roughly, the students started walking in that development to Thomas Holtzman here.
They do.
So now and since that time, we've had a tremendous amount of increase in the student traffic that is walking along. I think that perhaps concerns me more because they're essentially, although I know I tailed my kids when they were first starting off doing that, but they're essentially walking by themselves along the road. And again, some cars are clearly exceeding the posted limits. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll keep working on it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Anybody else wish to address the board? All right, moving on to approval of minutes. Our October 12th, 2017 regular meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And October 30th. Workshop meeting.
President.
Yes.
I move to accept it with an amendment. It's only a minor clarification. On page 2, under the last section, 2018 budget, second paragraph, report of the township currently reads, has a good 5 to 25% in reserve. I think should reflect the new language saying, report of the township has the recommended balance of between 5 and 25%. That's more of a professional financial recommendation from the Government Finance Officers Association. It's not a legal requirement, but it is a clarification that I think adds some information. I could repeat that if you like, Mr. Kratzer.
If you would, Commissioner.
Reported the township has the recommended balance of between 5 to 25% in reserve.
Johnny, do you have it? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. It's been moved with that slight modification. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Been seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Good. Reports of committees, buildings and grounds. Commissioner Rothrock.
Yes, we had a meeting of the, thank you, Mr. President. We had a meeting of the Buildings and Grounds Committee on the 30th of October. We met with Bob Reed of Kimmel Boget, is that how you pronounce that? It was a follow-up from our previous meeting. It was a conceptual design meeting. Commissioner Pine and I were in attendance, along with Dave, Betsy, and Chief Martin. The issues they were trying to address with the design for the redo of this building were issues of parking, the entryway being confusing for people coming in, the meeting room, audio-visual aids, and safety issues. They provided us with a PowerPoint presentation, which Mr. Kratzer has provided to all of the commissioners, so I hope you got a chance to look at that. They had some basic design elements that they were looking at. They did a centralized entry. They're utilizing the space between the two buildings and doing an entry there with it's a little more secure going into the two sides of the building. With the sort of receptionist area, sitting area. There's the new board meeting room in the rear, which would be on this level, off of that central public space in the middle. They basically intend to gut and reconfigure this entire side of the building. They're going to take all the walls out and just redo the whole thing. And that'll involve a temporary relocation of all of our offices here, probably for 6 months or more. They're going to do a more open design and try to eliminate the silos of, and do some cross-training for people. And in the lower level, they're redoing a lot of that, and there'll be 3 public activity areas down there. Of course, when they got finished with their presentation, my question was, what's this going to cost? And the answer was, well, that's the next thing we figure out for you. They wanted to get the basic concept down. So I have a feeling it's going to be not cheap. We're gutting a building. We're adding, some pretty nice spaces. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But they went back to the office to start working on costing out this, and I presume we can make some changes to the design. If the cost does not come into something. Did you have anything to add?
Well, only that some of the improvements that are recommended are obviously accessibility. The fact that a person in a wheelchair can get in and out of this building, without somebody helping them, which is important. And that this room, or at least the commissioner's room, would be actually moved to the back, and it would kind of exist over top of parking in the back. So it'd be an interesting concept, but as Commissioner Rockroth says, I think that, we have, a real big question about cost, and that's obviously central to the whole picture. So we'll see.
And that concludes my report.
So what's the next step on this?
They're going to come back to us with some cost numbers, and they're going to then, I think there's a public meeting. Is that right? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, there would be, one stage of this would be inviting the public to participate and have input. Yeah.
Exciting. This building, I always thought had design flaws from the get-go, but that's me. It's not really, it doesn't have a flow to it. So a way to enhance that and make it more user-friendly would be nice. Well, thank you for that. Okay, Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you. Time has come upon us again, as the walrus said. Sorry, and it's a Lewis Carroll reference. No, it could be the Beatles, yes. Sorry, Alice in Wonderland. Sorry, no, you are not the walrus.
Understood.
The budget is very straightforward this year. There are no moving parts unexpectedly. We have no major capital projects. We have no major bond expenditures. This is a budget. Everything balances as is constitutionally required. It doesn't take us an extra 4 months. And it is in short order as follows. 75 to 85% of the budget in any given year is dedicated. It is fixed because of contracts and labor and other state-mandated expenditures. And our revenues are generally flat. Community growth is relatively limited. We are a first-ring suburb, as many suburbs are, which means that our potential growth is not as substantial as it used to be. As a portion of the overall tax burden of the residents in Susquehanna Township, and keep in mind that we are a unified township and school district, the township's percentage of your tax dollar is 12 cents. The remaining balance is made up of a large majority of the school district and then the county. And that is actually relatively important because the demands upon the township services continue to rise: police, highway, infrastructure, and our revenues are flat, but through good management, we're creating efficiencies and stretching $1, or I should say 12 cents on each dollar further. The general fund budget is balanced at nearly $15.5 million. We're not changing any real estate tax millage. And we do have some dedicated revenue for special funds. These funds are not new. They are the fire fund, street lighting fund. That's dedicated revenue, so it's very easy to look at your tax invoices and know exactly where your money is going. I really should point out that in the last 2 years, we've had an enormous change in township staff. And our most recent hire, Mr. Spriggs, very glad to see you. This budget is a culmination of 2 years of very intense work. The township staff have really stepped up and made what was potentially a very difficult transition into a very smooth transition. So those of you here, Mr. Kratzer, and all others, thank you very much for your time. We did have this presentation in a workshop public meeting in October. It was not debated for approval. It was presented for discussion. It's not substantially the same, it is identical. So I would like to, Mr. President, open this opportunity for the rest of the board to offer comment, questions, or debate, but the presentation is as it was. And if, for purposes of discussion, I move to adopt this budget.
And advertise.
And advertise, yes, thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments on the budget? I gotta say, the PowerPoint looks good. You guys did a great job on that. And it's so much easier than reading numbers and pages of numbers. It kind of brings it home in a more user-friendly way.
Is that PowerPoint available online?
Yeah, we can make it available online, yes. As part of our posting of the preliminary budget, we could also include that as a supplemental
As a
item. Yep,
proposed
sure.
budget,
Yep.
Just to reiterate what Commissioner Sanderson just said, I mean, in terms of the total tax burden of your average taxpayer, and I should be corrected by others if I'm found to be wrong, corrected by staff, but it seems to me that if you had a pie and you cut it in 8 exact size pieces, one of those pieces would be to the township, 2 pieces would go to the county, and 5 pieces would go to the school district. That's, I think, based on what I'm seeing in the dollar chart. And so it gives taxpayers, I think, just an idea as to, how that all plays out. Just FYI.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I'd just like to mention that, as was mentioned already, costs continue to rise, yet we have before us a budget with no tax increase. And I think that credit goes to Manager Kratzer and Mrs. Logan and members of the staff who work hard to find ways to rein in costs and save money without cutting services. So they've dedicated a lot of time to finding grants and, again, reining in costs. So kudos to them for their work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all, staff and Commissioner Sanderson.
That ends my report.
Thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper?
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works Department report for the month of October. The Public Works Department installed new signs and repaired damaged signs throughout the township. Grass cutting was conducted in numerous lots, township lots and parks and grass berms on the road, which brings me to the leaf collection. The leaf collection removal schedule has started in management areas 1 and 2. Leaf management area 1 is in the uptown area of the township, which was completed October 27th, and area 2 was completed November 3rd. The Susquehanna Township Public Works Department collects residents' leaves. You are asked to follow several procedures for the replacement of leaves at the curb to ensure safety and efficient pickup. Leaves must be raked in a row onto the street in the front of the curbs. Remove objects such as rocks, tree limbs, and branches from the leaf pile. Leaf piles with this type of debris won't be picked up to avoid damage to our equipment. For safety reasons, children should not play on leaf piles. Again, for more information, see the township website. And as a final note, Mr. President, the Public Works Department assisted the Shade Tree Commission with planting of trees. This ends my report. Sir.
Report, thank you.
All righty.
Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Barczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next yard waste pickup is scheduled for Saturday, November 18th. I would encourage residents, if you have any yard waste, to get it out in November, as there is not a yard waste pickup in December. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Administration Personnel, Commissioner Napper.
No report, sir.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
No report.
Thank you. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank the Progress Rescue and Edgemont Fire Companies for being available for kids during Halloween. And I also want to recognize the police department and fire department personnel who attended the Vietnam Veterans Memorial unveiling event at Veterans Park this past Saturday. Just a absolutely wonderful ceremony to honor close to 250 veterans of Susquehanna Township, from Susquehanna Township, who served during the Vietnam War, 3 of whom were killed in action. And we keep their, we appreciate their service, and we keep their memories with us. Tremendous job, tremendous design by a student who graduated from Susquehanna Township in the class of 2014. It was just an amazing event, so I thank them for their attendance there and for supporting that event. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. It really was a nice event. And the 3 monuments together, World War II, Korea, and now Vietnam. It's really a very stunning display. I can't think of many other municipalities in Central PA that have that kind of tribute to veterans. Kudos to the Alumni Association, as well as to the Public Works Department. Got some kudos from Mrs. Kegerice. Is that her name?
Kennegizer.
Kennegizer.
Yeah.
Kegerice. For a lot of things, Nate, but including that little ramp that went down, into the 2B Stone. Really made a difference. It really made for a very nice day and a safer day. So thank you, and thank the guys, please. Okay, Recreation, Commissioner Johnson.
No report.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
There was a meeting of the Planning Commission on the 31st of October. We looked at two issues. The first was a proposed text amendment from Triple Crown Corporation for 2605 Interstate Drive. They want to convert that from currently vacant office space into residential. They had been at the previous meeting. They came back with proposed language for us. The main changes were they wanted to increase the number of units allowed per building in a multifamily zone to 54, which is the number that they're proposing for this building. They wanted to allow reuse in a BOR zone. And they had some conditions for approval of this kind of reuse. It would have to adjoin a multifamily housing property, be over 20 years old, and be vacant for at least 365 days. The township staff had a recommendation that we needed a broader conversion reg than something that's just specifically for this property as a special exception. And the conclusion of the discussion was that they would meet with Triple Crown and try to hash out something that was a little more acceptable. I think the main concern is we didn't want to have a blanket 54 units per building for everything, including new construction.
Right.
We don't want to take that. It's currently 18. We don't want to take that big of a leap. And so I think we're looking to something maybe address this particular situation, and then we'll try one and see how it goes. That's kind of how I came away with it. The second issue was the preliminary plan that was submitted for Susquehanna Union Green, which is the Vartan property in the corner of Lingostown Road and Progress Avenue. They did submit a plan. There were numerous comments and questions from HRG and also from the township staff that are going to have to be addressed before the Planning Commission would take any action. Their action would be, assuming that they find it acceptable, to recommend approval to the board here. The residents were here, and they had a number of concerns. The major concerns were contamination of groundwater because the development across the road is on wells, and they thought the construction disturbance would create some problems. Of course, traffic was a big issue. There is a traffic study underway, and of course, after that's done, it's going to have to go to PennDOT, and PennDOT's going to tell them what the requirements are going to be. There was a question about sewer capacity, and after some discussion, it seemed like sewer capacity would be fully addressed as part of the approval process. There was a complaint about noise. Someone said that after the Giant Plaza was built, they had an increase in noise in their neighborhood, and they're worried about more noise. There was an issue about empty storefronts and empty commercial buildings now, and so why are we building more of that type of facility? I think is a legitimate question. Not that necessarily we can address that, but something to think about. And the loss of open land. We discussed that the Planning Commission has 90 days to review a proposal and take action. And it seems that 90-day period is going to be exceeded simply because they have to get this traffic study done, then they have to get it to PennDOT, and then PennDOT has to have time to review it and get back to us. So it looks like we're going to be looking to extend that period of time. And that's pretty much how that meeting went. That, did you have anything to add?
No, that's pretty comprehensive. Thank you.
All right. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, moving on to bids and agreements. Number one is the 2018 Humane Society agreement.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide a little bit background on the agreement. Again, as I had noted in my synopsis of the item, the provisions of the agreement are generally consistent with the 2017 agreement that the township has with the Humane Society of Harrisburg area. The fees remain the same as the fees contained within the 2017 agreement between us and the Humane Society. And township staff is recommending approval of the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
I have one quick question I meant to ask you earlier. How does this agreement work with? Do we still have an agreement in place with Steelton Community Cats?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
So can they work?
They work in conjunction to a certain extent. Again, from a feral cat perspective, with the exception of the vouchers that the Humane Society provides, there's a series of free vouchers that they provide as part of the agreement. Majority of our cats go to Steelton.
Okay.
After those vouchers are exhausted.
Okay.
Again, we have obligations, obviously, under the Pennsylvania State Dog Law.
Sure.
Particularly related to the police department.
Yes.
The Humane Society fulfills that obligation. So the two agreements work in concert.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I have a question regarding the vouchers for the feral cats. In the agreement, it talks about the municipality receives a number of free vouchers based on the number of feral cats that they take to the Humane Society, but nowhere does it give a number specific to our municipality. So is there any way to gauge? I'm just curious how many vouchers Susquehanna Township gets.
I think we last year, again, recognizing primarily our feral cats are not going to Humane Society, so obviously their intake numbers are depressed by virtue of our relationship with Steelton Cats. I think we had between 4 or 6 vouchers that they had provided. So again, what our approach is, when somebody comes in the door initially, because we do have a cost to Steelton Cats, obviously we distribute the vouchers first, and then at that point, then we kind of transition from the Humane Society to Steelton for dealing with cats. But it's in the 4 to 6 range is what I recall.
4 to 6 cats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, that's
minimal.
that's not a significant amount. So.
I will mention, though, that I noticed, so it's half the, we have to put down a deposit of approximately half of what we paid last year. So I'm guessing by the deposit, we paid between $8,000 and $9,000 last year. So I guess the Steelton Community Cats has substantially reduced our costs, because I remember at one point, before we signed on with Steelton Community Cats, we were spending approaching $25,000, I think, to the Humane Society. So it's working.
It appears to be working, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Commissioner Barczyk is correct. The initial deposit that's referenced in the agreement is representative of 50% of the cost that was expended in the prior agreement period. So, yep.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agreement passes. Next is our series of change orders for the Uptown Drainage and Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project. Mr. Grubik, do you want to address these?
Happy to, Mr. President, Commissioners. On the agenda, it says change order number 5. There have been 2 additional change orders submitted by the contractor. Unfortunately, the number 6 and 7 were just submitted today after pushing the contractor for many weeks to get it in, so we do have them in hand. Change order 5 is for some additional full-depth paving on Parkway Road. If you recall, originally going back to the beginning of the design of this project, there was significant discussion related to how much full-depth paving should be installed because of the various utilities that were involved in the project. when the project got underway, working with the utility companies, specifically UGI and Suez, there were those particular utility companies wanted to be able to expand some of their work. So basically there are 3 change orders this evening. First, the number 5 is for full-depth milling outside of the original scope and full-depth pavement restoration along Parkway Road. Change order 6 and 7. Change order 6 is for milling and paving on North 6th Street, and change order 7 is for curb milling and overlay paving on Green Street and Durham Road. The total of these change orders amounts to, change order 5 total is $6,378. The sum of change orders number 6 and 7 is $82,902.98. There was a slight increase because of the additional work. There was a slight increase in the asphalt index. The price of oil is going up a little bit over the past several months. So based on the condition of the streets and the amount of disturbance that was done ultimately, we would recommend the adoption of these change orders so we have full-depth pavement restoration in those 3 areas.
Mr. President,
Commissioner.
is it possible, should we take these individually, or can we vote on them together?
If any board member wants to vote on any one of them individually, we should do that. Otherwise, we can vote on them all together.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve change orders 5, 6, and 7 for the Uptown Drainage and Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Vehicles for sale, authorization to advertise?
Yeah, as the President has noted, we're seeking authorization to advertise for sale the following vehicles via a municipal bid. Those are a 2003 Ford Explorer, 2005 Ford Expedition, a 2007 Dodge Durango, and a 2009 Dodge Durango. We're looking at accepting bids until Friday, December the 8th at 4 p.m. And we would anticipate to have this back before the Commissioners at your December 14th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we doing cars every month, or are these the ones we did last month?
These are just these are vehicles that are largely transitioning as a result of transition that's occurring from police vehicles to other emergency service providers. So again, just the 03 Ford Explorer is used by EMA. There's going to be a vehicle that's going to be transitioning to EMA. So we're not proposing any additional purchases. It's just vehicles running through the cycle, if you will. There's also some, again, as we're trying to optimize the size of the fleet and right-size the fleet, there's also a reduction in the fleet size. So, again, one of the vehicles, for example, the 07 Dodge Durango, was initially being used by the Recreation Department. And we've just moved some vehicles around in position. We had excess vehicles, quite frankly. So we're trying to right-size the fleet, and this is just part of that process.
Manager Kratzer, could we extend the time that they're on municipal bid? Like, is it a hard December 8th, I think, or December 9th? What's that date?
December 8th is what it's currently set up for.
I mean, can we keep them on there if they don't sell by then, or would you need authorization to continue to keep them up, basically, is what I'm asking, or could
yeah, I mean,
you
at
do
this
that
point,
at your
we're
discretion?
proposing to advertise it through the 8th of December, and hopefully be in a position to bring you bids on the 14th.
Okay.
Which again, the period of time, is much greater than our statutorily obligated period of time. So we
Okay.
recognizing that you're not meeting at the end of this month because of the Thanksgiving holiday, we just simply extended the bid period.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinances, resolutions, et cetera. Ordinance 17-18, which would establish standards, regulations, and districts in which uses permitted under the Medical Marijuana Act are permitted. Now, we did have a hearing on this topic before tonight. A couple of questions were raised, and we turn to Commissioner Fleming to offer any thoughts that he may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Yeah, the one thing that caught my eye in the ordinance, I think on the whole and on balance, it's a responsible ordinance. I mean, it basically it sets up parameters for where facilities related to medical marijuana can be placed within the township. One thing did catch my eye, though. For the most part, we designate the following zones: the IG zone, which is pull it up here, industrial general, mixed use density MU1 zone. And then dispensaries we permit in a commercial neighborhood zone, commercial highway, mixed use, MU1, but also added that medical marijuana dispensaries are permitted in R4 residential urban district zoning. And I think that's a mistake to move forward with it currently constructed in that fashion. You know, residential, R4 residential is meant for apartment complexes and the like. And, you know, while it's highly unlikely that someone would be granted a license from the state to run a dispensary out of their apartment, I don't think we should take that chance. So I'm recommending, if this is appropriate, I'm recommending that we do not move this as currently constructed and we amend it and unfortunately restart the process. I know a lot of hard work has gone into this, and I think it was nothing more than an oversight, but I think it's something that we need to deal with before it's approved. So that would be my recommendation, Mr. President.
So that's a motion to amend the proposed ordinance in the fashion that you just recommended.
By striking out the language.
Striking the last sentence of section 4D.
Yes, section 2. Section 2D.
And that's your motion.
I would move that that's what we do.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comment?
It's a question.
Yes.
If we amend it, will we then be having a subsequent vote to then act on it, or does that automatically send it back to the planning commissions?
Once you amend it, you will have to send it back to the Dauphin County Planning Commission and the Susquehanna Township Planning Commission.
Should that be part of the motion?
For the re-review. So you would amend it, then after you amend it, if you successfully amend it, then you'll have to send it back. That'd be the second step you need to take, because you can't vote on a text amendment to your zoning until it is reviewed by the two planning commissions.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
At
Commissioner.
this point, the board should send this back to the planning commission, both planning commissions.
So moved.
For review as amended.
Second. Did you say so moved, Sean?
I did. Yes.
Second?
Okay, wasn't that inferred in the Justin's original motion?
But his motion was to amend it. Because you amended it, you
All right.
have to take this.
Okay.
You can just hold it and not do anything, but if you want to move
No, that'd be
forward
silly.
as amended,
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any comment?
Briefly?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President, just very quickly.
Thank you. Touche.
I know we're going to see this again because it has to go to both the township and county planning commissions, but I just want anybody who happened to be watching this to know that this is obviously medical marijuana, and it's following the state statute that was adopted within the last year or two, and it's very restrictive, and I think it's very responsible. If you've ever known a child who has significant seizures, there's at least anecdotal evidence that can provide relief to those children and families, and so I plan to support this when the time comes. But I just want to make very clear that it's medical marijuana and not recreational.
The chair would note that you're on your second bag of chips.
Is that medical or recreation?
That's all the chair knows.
Touche.
Observational.
And Mr. President.
Anecdotal.
That was great, by the way. And Mr. President, just one other thing, as it was brought up in the hearing by School Board President Dietrich, there is language in the ordinance as well as basically dictated by the state statute that any dispensary facility has to be more than 1,000 feet, minimum of 1,000 feet away from a school, public, parochial, or otherwise daycare center. So there are restrictions and parameters around that.
Any other comments? No other comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Ordinance 17-19, which would accept the dedication of Sunflower Drive on the plan for sunflower fields in Ward 9.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
Yes.
Comment away.
Is this, I'm presuming because they always are, is the drive built according to township specs?
Yes, it is, Commissioner, and it was not only designed but built to township specifications with the intention of having the township accept the street upon its completion.
Thank you.
I understand they had a ribbon cutting. I couldn't attend in the 9th Ward, but I understand it was beautiful. There's tons of applications for this development, and it's been awesome. I can't wait to get over there and take a look at it.
Yeah, it is, Commissioner Napper, it is really an impressive project. It's done well. Obviously, it's serving a good purpose, but from a design aesthetic perspective, it's really done well. Their innovation, from a design perspective, its utilization of community spaces, it's a well-done development. So I would encourage each of the commissioners to go see it if you have an opportunity.
Great, good. Okay. Did we vote on that yet?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 17R13, which would amend the township fee schedule, which is located in your packets. Moved by Commissioner Sanderson.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Any questions or comments on the new fee schedule?
Good job.
Good job. Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sunflower Fields again. This is a request to reduce the site improvement guarantee from $308,188.66 to $33,000, $105.60. Township engineers reviewed the request and recommended approval.
So move.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Paxton Creek Apartments, another site improvement guarantee reduction request for the apartments from $16,857.50 to $0. Again, the engineers reviewed the request and recommended approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment or question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any unfinished business?
Yes.
Yes.
It's become our habit annually to review on number 9, the PPL streetlight LED conversion. And last year, we asked for 100 we asked PPL to convert 100. And I'm just bringing it up as a matter of time of year to make this similar request because I don't think PPL has a standing order to do this.
They do not. You have to go in and make the request.
Because there's a 10-year time frame, there's a window where they review
correct
the age of the
So
streetlights.
as they fall off, Commissioner, yes. they
So
become
I
eligible.
don't know
Yep.
if this requires an act of the board, but I know we voted on it last time.
I mean,
Would
I don't think you. If you simply direct us, we will go through the process.
Unless
of
there's
looking
objection, I
for-
would like the township staff to continue this.
No objection. Could you add Verizon Files to that list as well, sir?
Can we ask for more than 100?
How long has it been?
Oh, well, doesn't their agreement come up in 2018?
Yes. The extended service area, and I did have a meeting with them probably maybe a couple months ago, and they said that they're anticipating build-out consistent with the extended service
Really?
agreement. So,
Okay.
again, that's
We heard that 7 years ago.
well, you may very well have heard that, but that's what they communicated at this point.
We do have we do have some discretion if they don't meet that agreement, correct?
Yeah, there's certain penalties for failure to meet the existing agreement. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I think we should exercise that.
Well, they've got until 2018.
Yeah.
So
Can we
We'll
just
be-
reiterate that? I appreciate what you're saying, just to point out, because I do get a lot of questions about this, as I'm sure certain commissioners do, if you don't have FiOS in your ward.
Yes. Sure.
So, Manager Kratzer, you did meet with Verizon.
We did.
And
We-
discuss with them that their build-out period is
Could-
next year, and they're saying they're going to comply?
That is correct. They're
Okay.
aware of the obligations under the existing franchise agreement. As part of the there was a compliance review or compliance discussion, I should say, that was facilitated by the Capital Region Council of Governments, and I had specifically gone. I don't know if it was over to East Park Drive or. To meet with Verizon, specifically their franchise person. They brought out maps. We went over the obligations in terms of the extended service area, and they've said that they're on pace to be in a position to deliver. So, at that point, I thanked them and kind of moved on. But yes, it is something that I've had a conversation about.
Thank you for the update. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Sean.
I agree.
Kind of killed the PP&L.
Actually,
Put the light out on that one.
Commissioner Pine, you were asking a question about the
If it would be possible to increase from like 100 to more.
Yeah, I mean, again, from a free perspective, anything that's beyond the 10-year period that Commissioner Sanderson had referenced, essentially they've amortized the original investment that would be eligible for free replacement. You could go and do a wholesale replacement throughout the entire township, but if it's within that period, you're essentially going to pay whatever has not been amortized out or depreciated, if you will, related to the fixtures. So in terms of a specific number, we just simply need to go into the program and attempt to isolate those. It's kind of an interesting exercise because obviously you want some logic to kind of how you're doing the replacement, but it could be more, it could be less, depending on where they fall within that 10-year period.
Well, the citizens of the township pay the bills, the electric bills. I mean, do we have any idea what the savings?
There's a rate schedule that is addressed at the PUC, and it's a standard cost, standard expense. So if you install high-pressure sodium, electricity costs so much. If you install light-emitting diodes, it costs so much. Because each light post is not metered, it's bulk purchasing. So it does not necessarily save hundreds of thousands of dollars. It does save an order of magnitude over time, but it is, like most infrastructure, treated very gradually. So we will see, in some respects, a reduction of expenses, but I don't think it will be significantly measurable in a dollar value to each individual taxpayer. It'll be reflected more or less in the overall budget of the township. And it will take between 10 and 20 years.
Is the staff, do you feel so instructed, or do you need a motion?
We feel so instructed.
By the way, Commissioner Napper, you're on Public Works, and in the broadest sense, Public Works would include telecommunications activities. So if you want to join or help out, and you as well, Mr. Engel, to help out or guide the discussion, feel free to do so.
Will do, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Mr.
Always
Spriggs.
thinking.
Pleasure. We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Guidance.
Appreciate the guidance, yeah.
Any other unfinished
We gotta get it
business
in our
before we move
neighbor.
on? Hearing none. Mr. Kratzer, anything?
We do have one item, if Betsy, if you wouldn't mind coming up. We want to talk to you and provide an update and some of the work that an intern that's been working for us has been doing, particularly related to the Pennsylvania Sustainable Community Certification Program, which is a program that I think is jointly administered through the Pennsylvania Municipal League, as well as Sustainable Pittsburgh, I believe, is involved in some fashion. So if you want to give an update, that would be great.
Thank you, Manager Kratzer. Good evening. As David said, I just wanted to give an update. Our intern has been working since September, going through the certification process through the Pennsylvania Municipal League's requirements. He has documented as much as he can on what we have done for sustainability so far as a township, and also is providing some recommendations on what we can do to improve our score. At this point, he believes we can obtain a gold certification, which there's 4 levels of certification. One of the parts of the certification process is that the board would have to pass a resolution. So we just wanted to make sure that you guys are willing to enter into, review a resolution and agree that this is something that you're interested in doing. So.
And what would the resolution say?
You have the intent to apply for a sustainable community and to meet the standards that are required in that. So we would obviously bring a draft before you,
right.
before any decisions were made.
Yeah, Josh is going through again. Just as we talked about this a while back, but it does deal with a host of sustainability issues. It's not just simply environmental sustainability. It relates to fiscal sustainability. It relates to operational sustainability. So again, as Betsy is pointing out, there's 4 certification levels. The highest being platinum, the second being gold. At this point, we're without affecting any change. We believe that we have sufficient documentation. You need to document this through web links and the like, and that's one of the values of Josh's presence, because it is somewhat cumbersome just to go through and collect the data necessary for the certification. So Josh is a student that's studying at Shippensburg University, and he's been helping us through that process. And as Betsy said, once we know where we're at, then there's obviously some ability for us, assuming that the cost and the benefit cost analysis, weighs out appropriately, that we could go for recertification as we proceed forward. But so we're positioned pretty well. We just wanted to update the board on Josh's work. Again, there'll be a resolution as well as a kind of a summary document that Josh is putting together, but wanted to let you know where we stand.
Okay. And how long do we have Josh with us?
We've actually, because we have census and some other projects coming up, we've requested and that he continue through next semester. So he'll be off for Christmas break, and we'll come back. He also, the way we set it up, he wasn't able to get credit for the internship for his class, so this next semester he'll be able to get credit.
Okay, great.
So
We should also note that the intern Josh assisted us in planting trees. So
He did,
he's working on
yes.
environmental sustainability first person.
yeah, and he's working at the front counter, so he's learning a lot just by being there and doing permit questions and complaints. So. He also has prepared a website or a web page for our website, and that should be uploaded probably next week. So you'll have some information will be on there under the community development tab.
We'll be able to forward that link to you. I'll make sure that that's forwarded to you so that you can see some of the work that's being done and some of the good work, quite frankly, that you have been doing already. This program is really about recognizing that, and again, it's a documentation effort, but there's a lot of good practices that you guys have employed over the years that could be recognized through this program.
So his next step would be to start the application process once, and that during that process is when we would require the resolution. So, okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if just one other thing, if while you're up here, I'm sorry, but just for the board's benefit, there's a couple members that are obviously involved in this process, but we did release a request for proposals for consulting services related to our comprehensive plan update. We got I don't know if we've reported back to the full board on that, but we got a pretty good response. We got 9 consulting firms that have responded, all with the capacity and capability to service us in kind of developing a comprehensive plan for the future, if you will, here in Susquehanna Township. So on Monday, I think it's Commissioner Rothrock, and is any other commissioner?
I don't know that any other commissioners can
I don't know
attend.
if Commissioner Robarczyk is going to be
Were you
able to make it,
attend
but
on Monday, or?
No, I'm picking up my daughter.
Okay.
I thought it was Tuesday.
That's different. That's the Widener Law School thing.
Oh,
this
I'm
is
sorry.
for the. That's
So
okay.
many meetings.
Yeah, no, I've requested a lot of the commissioners recently. So, yeah, I believe we have 2 Planning Commission members who will be there, as well as Jerry Duke from the County Planning Commission, David, myself, and I think that's probably it who will be attending. So we have 6 interviews on Monday. So hopefully that will help give us some idea of of who to pick, because all of the proposals were very good. So.
The other thing is, I don't know if we want to mention, you mentioned Widener. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, just as an update for the full board, since some are involved, particularly the planning and zoning liaisons. But
Right. So we've been working with Widener University's sustainability law class with their professor. Manager Kratzer and I had met with them this summer, and every year he, in the fall, he has a class that works on ordinances for municipalities or for local government agencies, so like the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs and PSATs, the Pennsylvania State Association of Second-Class Townships. They had previously done some stuff with Harrisburg, but since we were so close and they're obviously in our township, we wanted to kind of get involved with them. And the students, we have 3 groups of students who are working on ordinances that relate to the township, and that's for chickens and bees in the zoning up to amend the zoning ordinance. They also have a draft drone ordinance, and then one on complete streets, which is a program. It's a national program that it's kind of a policy program that you say you're going to incorporate a complete streets policy where you make sure your ordinances meet both walking, vehicular transportation as well as bicycle transportation. So we have 3 draft ordinances, and on the 21st of November here at the township, they will be doing presentations to some of the board members and planning
lucky
commission
volunteers.
Lucky volunteers who are willing to donate their time. So
it's been a good relationship. I mean, again, just it's not every community obviously that has a law school in their jurisdiction, but beyond the work, and Bruce has been very helpful as well in providing guidance as a practicing attorney, and just to kind of engage that student population is, I think, important, and one that I think, even as we go through the comprehensive planning effort, maybe a constituent group that we want to look at in terms of engagement, and that's going to be a heavy focus in what we're doing from a comprehensive planning perspective, and looking at strategies to engage people that perhaps have not been engaged in the process in the past. So it has opened the door, and I think we're going to see value from it, so we wanted to provide an update.
Thank you.
Partnerships are great, especially a great institution in law school like Widener.
Sure.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Very good.
Nothing further, Mr. President.
Okay, and the traffic study was pulled, right?
That is
Gotcha.
that is correct. Yes, the traffic study was pulled.
Mr. Grubik, do you have anything additional?
Our report is included in your packets, Commissioners. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Hearing none, move on to Mr. Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to review with the board.
Okay. School Board, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to acknowledge that we had an election recently, and I'd like to commend Jesse Rawls on earning re-election, former Susquehanna Township Commissioner. Jesse Rawls for earning re-election, as well as Josie Bisick, Jesse Gant, and Scott Campbell for being elected to 4-year terms. I also congratulate Elisha Buckner for earning a 2-year term on the school board, and I look forward to working with each of them to continue moving the district forward, and want to offer my sincere thanks to the members of the board who are departing. including Mr. Earl Wilborn, Mr. Clifton Edwards,
Mrs. Pierce?
Mrs. Sarah Pierce, thank you, who was an 8th Ward resident, and Miss Helen Spence, thank you. I was in the process of writing that all down and didn't quite get there. So again, my sincere thanks for their service. School board is, it's extremely important and is often thankless, quite frankly. And they serve tens of thousands of hours every year working on behalf of our community and our students. So I want to thank them and welcome the new folks. So that concludes my report. And if President Dietrich has anything, feel free.
I have some items I could share if you'd like.
Please.
Please come on up.
All right, first, I also wanted to say that the Veterans Memorial Ceremony was impressive, and man, you really can't put words to that. It was extremely well done. I did want to point out obviously to thank the alumni that was obviously instrumental in bringing that to us, making that happen. It was interesting that Steve Morris is actually a student from the high school, of course, that drew the imagery on the monument itself. And I was speaking with him, and of course, it was 4 years ago that the Alumni Association was working with the students and selecting that, working with the artists there and selecting the student. And Stephen is, of course, has moved on and doing other things now, and kind of, I don't want to say it slipped his mind, but he was somewhat surprised and obviously very pleased to come back and see his work come to that conclusion. It was very impressive. In the chorus, I just want to mention
the chorus was very good. I was going to say.
It was nice that they were able to. In the band normally would have had a competition, and that's why they had planning on 5 students from the chorus. But so many of our chorus members are also the band, and they were then able to make it. Competition was the next day, and they chose not to do competitions back to back. And just to give you an update as well, the modular building that I spoke to the last time we were here, I think at this point we're looking, actually we just approved, I believe, Monday night at our board meeting here this past Monday, we approved to go ahead with trying to bring in one modular unit, which I think houses then 2 rooms at the Sarah Lindemuth property. I believe here at Thomas Holzman they've squeezed at least some space out of room. Actually, I believe we have the food pantry that's there may already be or is planning to be moved, and that will give them some room here. So I think their plan roughly is to move that food pantry to the middle school perhaps, but that would then open up a space for a classroom that they would need here to buy us some time there. Also on Monday night, we approved the hiring of our new Director of Maintenance, Operation, and Transportation, Mr. Dallas Stallman. Coming up on Monday the 13th here, 6 to 7:30 at the Thomas Holzman Library is an ELD family night. ELD, not exactly sure the acronym there, maybe the English language
It used to be English as a second language, ESL, but it's a new designation.
ESL is for the students, English student, I think English student.
English is a second language.
Okay, English second language. Yeah. But it revolves around that, and I think it's something just wanted to bring to your attention. We obviously do have, as all areas have, we have influx of folks that need the resources, and for us to have make efforts to connect with them, to bring them into part of our community quicker is a benefit to all of us. So I'm not sure if some of our services, I'm assuming some of our services will be there because that's part of the purpose of the night. So I'm assuming maybe our EMS or some other services may be participating, other services in the community. So thank you to everybody who is participating in that. Just to mention, we had 4 students qualified for the PMEA District 7 chorus. As you mentioned, the reorg meeting will be on December 4th when we seat our new members. And congratulations to the 4 of you that are here again and will be with us again here on this board. So I'm glad to see that. And just finally, the band has done well again this year as well. And They took first place in states competition back a couple weekends ago. ACC's was this past weekend at Hershey. I'm not sure how they placed. I think it was around maybe sixth place there. There was a large number of bands there. And we have states or nationals coming up this coming weekend. So when everybody's sitting on their warm couches when it's 40 degrees, I will be escorting the band and the students at about somewhere in the 30s or 40s at MetLife Stadium. So you can think of us there. I believe that's all I have. Thank you for the time. So,
And you talk about thankless. Nothing gets done in the band community without the band parents. So, I mean, the students are pretty good too. Well, it's not. But still, I mean, the band parents make it go.
I'll give you another plug for the students. So they were practicing on Wednesday.
Toot their own horn.
Wednesday night. They were practicing last night. And they actually, usually they go from about 6 to or 5 to 9 on those Wednesday nights, and they practice throughout the season. They actually wrapped it up a half hour earlier. There was frost accumulating on all of the equipment. It was so we're like, okay. I mean, we've got some electronic equipment out there. So I think it's time to roll it in. But that shows you their dedication.
There you
They're
go.
all out there with just sweatshirts, and I don't know how the kids do it, honestly. But
They're fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, is that it, Mr. Fleming?
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Authority, Mr. Sanderson.
Better wrap it up.
No report, thank you.
All right, Indian Wheels, Commissioner Barczyk.
No report, thank you. I do have something brief on Shade Tree, though. It was discussed earlier in the meeting. Actually, Mr. Dietrich brought up about the traffic and the speeding on, was it Continental Crooked Hill? Studies have shown, and they've been used effectively, shade trees to calm traffic. So if you have not just one tree, but obviously a row of trees in the street. So that might be something, in addition to other traffic calming measures, that some of the commissioners, that their wards cover that area, you may want to look at next year when we do our shade tree planting. What I've done in the past is target certain areas. You can print out the applications and deliver them to doors in that area, encourage residents to plant shade trees. I mean, obviously other benefits too, but they have been shown to calm traffic in addition to cutting traffic noise.
And you answered my question, that would have to come from the homeowner who was...
Yes.
Okay.
They'd have to apply for it, but you can speak to them and ask them if they'd be interested.
Sure.
And if you get
And we have a few, but
Right.
it's not tree lined.
yeah, it's pretty much a psychological thing, but
Yeah.
it does tend to slow traffic down.
Excellent. Betsy.
I'm sorry. I wanted to call Betsy up. This relates to Shade Tree. If commissioners, do you mind if she wanted to share some of the work that the Shade Tree Commission has been doing, particularly in terms of mapping and the app, I guess, that we're now using and so forth. So again, there's a lot of things going on that are, I think, good things, and a lot of them involving our volunteers. So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
So in the newsletter this fall, there was an article regarding the new Open Tree Map program. It's an app that you can download. You can, if you are good at identifying trees, then you can take pictures with your phone. It will GPS locate the tree, and you can just kind of fill in some basic categories about it. So we can start to map all of our trees in the township. We did map all of them during the tree planting that we had in October, and based on the newsletter article, we've gotten 2 volunteers who are familiar with identifying trees and are interested in being citizen scientists who will be doing that. So it will be a long process. We would like to, hopefully in the spring or summer, work with the state on they do like an outreach kind of community event where they kind of get people together to kind of learn the process of tree mapping and how to identify trees and kind of focus on different sections of the township. So thank you.
If I can add, the app also allows you to document rain barrels, which will help us in upcoming stormwater management.
Correct.
So you can, if you have how can residents, can they contact someone and let them know to document?
They could contact someone. We'd have to come to their house and document it. You have to have like a password in order to actually put something on. Anybody can view it. So I think right now you'll probably only see maybe 40 trees that are mapped, and we have mapped our rain garden that was along 6th Street. As did we map your rain barrel?
My rain barrel in my home is
Right, and
on there,
yeah. So Commissioner Barczyk has a rain barrel, and as an example, we were able to map that. So in addition to rain barrels, you can map rain gardens if you have one at your home. You can also map swales and other stormwater management facilities. And the end result is it shows you how much our trees are saving the environment as far as air pollution, noise pollution, carbon, your carbon footprint, that type of stuff. And it also will calculate that based on stormwater management that you map. So it's a pretty neat program. If you just get a chance, you can look at it on their website as well. So.
Will more participation help us with our municipal obligations under MS4? In other words, 50 more rain barrels and 20 more rain gardens. Will that help us towards?
Yep, anything would help us.
We,
and documenting them, because I'm sure multiple people have rain barrels, but we have no documentation of it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people are interested in, and have them at their residence, but we don't, at this point, don't have
we're looking at millions of dollars in obligations down the road.
Correct.
And so what you're suggesting, and to also turn to the engineer, that the more volunteer participation we get of things like Commissioner Barczyk brought up, it potentially could reduce our own financial obligations, financial outlay.
And trees are a great way to meet our obligations as well. I mean, not just trees like riparian buffer trees, but even our street trees can count towards those obligations. So.
Okay.
Maybe that's something we put in our newsletters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hate to, I don't mean to throw all this stuff at you, but Frank and I were at a media training event this morning, and we talked about, being a little bit more proactive in terms of what we're, how we're communicating, and I wanted to talk to the communications committee about this, but there's a lot of positive work going on that I think we probably should be doing a better job communicating. So.
Mr. President, the reason I sat up is because I've been following this issue actually nationally for about 6 years. And only recently, in the last 3 years, has there been some critical mass building up in the township, and I think there are a lot of different software programs that do that accomplish these goals. I just think this is some of this is free software, and then you pay for greater application. And I'm just very, very excited to see the township moving forward, not just on documenting the trees, which is in and of itself is a worthy endeavor because it brings people together. And sometimes you find trees that are 250 years old, and that's really cool. But it adds unexpectedly to the benefit of the township in its environmental sustainability. That's all.
And I would say that this the app is free for us to use. The state pays the fees that are related to that. So.
Oh, even better.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Communications, Commissioner Pine, do you have anything?
No report, Mr. President, but I look forward to working with the manager about just what we just discussed.
The outreach, yep. Okay. All right, anything human relations?
No report, thank you.
Community and economic development. Good. Any new business? All right. Any commissioner comments before we pay bills?
One quickly, Mr. President. I would just like to thank the residents of the 8th Ward who came out to vote on a dreadful day weather-wise, and quite frankly, the residents township-wide
Can't hear you.
who came out to vote. So, how dare you? All right. I need to get serious, guys. No, serving as your... Serving as your commissioner has
Why
been
don't you just throw out that you had more votes than any other member sitting on?
I was not. Thank you. I was not going to mention that. I didn't look at the results.
The machines were broken.
Maybe that'll refocus them a little bit. So
I think Mr. Engel is going to Vegas, right?
We can get out.
Serving as your commissioner has been a tremendous honor, and I look forward to working for you on your behalf for another 4 years. And I would also like to congratulate my colleagues, Commissioner Rothrock, Commissioner Lynch, Commissioner Sanderson, for earning re-election themselves. So it's going to be a pleasure to continue working with you all. That concludes my report, my comment.
Mr. President, if I may,
Commissioner, yes.
on the topic of voting, it'd be wonderful if more people participated in the process with turnout numbers of 25%. That means 75%, obviously, are sitting home. And we know local government is important, all government's important, and we know residents contact us with concerns and issues, and that's good that they pay attention to that, but we encourage more people to get out and vote and exercise your right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Ladies
Okay.
first.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to wish my fellow Commissioner Napa and our Chief of Police a happy Veterans Day, and for any other veterans that are out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. President, there was reference, I think, by Commissioner Napper earlier about the leaf collection. I just had a question, and I see that our highway director is here, and wonder, public safety director, public works director is here, and I wonder if he could just explain quickly about the leaf collection zones and how that calendar lays out. I think Commissioner Napper mentioned that the uptown area was October 27, and then I guess the southern end is November 3rd. So those are the two regions, and we're on a rotation. And how will that?
Yes. What'll happen is we'll do one full cycle, and then once that cycle is complete, we'll go back a second round.
Okay.
Okay, and then if need be, we'll continue until all the leaves are picked up. So if we have to do a third round, we will.
Okay. Because I'm just trying to understand that November 3rd, that last week,
Right.
was the southern end, and then you go back to the northern end and southern end. Is that how it's working?
No, it's spelled out. Do you have the map with you, Commissioner?
I do not. I just have that Area 2 was completed November 3rd.
Right. We have a map.
Yeah, there is a
Let's
map.
spell it out with the areas. It's in a newsletter, and it shows like Area 1 was mainly the uptown area, and then there's various areas according to how it's mapped. We'll do one complete cycle, and then we'll go back and do another cycle until all the leaves are.
And
It's
that's on
just
our
the two
website.
Two full
zones.
cycles.
They're leaf management areas, and there's
Right.
4 of them.
4 of them, correct.
Oh, 4.
Correct.
Okay.
Next year, I'm working on something already, do it a little different for next year. So we'll have something new next year, I guarantee.
Shake the
Surprise.
trees. Shake
Yeah,
the trees.
yeah, we're gonna have something new next year. We've actually even had our sweepers out this year, because it's just helping with the process. It's more efficient, so we kept them out a little longer.
Do you
And,
expect that the leaf collection will run pretty much up to snow plowing?
I expect it will.
I've had a lot of questions. I'm sure other
Yeah,
commissioners have.
we actually had the storm delay us a little bit, so we were out doing that this week.
And Nate, I think
yes,
you
sir.
also tried to get a jump on some of the, I guess, more tree-populated areas. Is that correct?
So we actually revisit it. So once we complete a week, if we get halfway through that week and notice that area is pretty clean, we'll go back in the area that's heavier, like Commissioner Rabarchek's area has a lot of leaves. The Edgemont area, Commissioner Sanderson's areas where it's heavily populated with leaves. So we'll go back and hit those areas. They're not according to schedule, but once we clean the area relatively quickly, we'll go back and visit some of the heavy areas, just randomly.
Yeah, and one of the residents in Mountaindale I saw at the polling place commended you all for hitting that area as well and keeping it.
We're staying
clean.
busy. We're sticking to the schedule. However, if we complete the schedule relatively quickly, which we have been doing, we'll just go and hit areas I'm out every day riding around, so if I see an area, I'll pull the guys and say, hey, this area needs more attention. Like I said, when you guys hired me, my goal was to treat every area with the same attention and care, and that's what we've been doing.
Perfect.
Just the big problem is that a lot of the leaves haven't fallen yet.
That's the problem. So it's a lot sitting around. So some areas, if you drive around me, it may look like, wow, we have a lot of leaves, and in other areas it's not. But we're staying active, and we are addressing a lot of those areas. Like I said, we have a schedule out there, and we're blowing through it. We're working. So we actually revisit areas that might be heavily populated with leaves.
Thank you.
And we hit those areas.
Thanks for your work.
Yep, sure. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Mr. President, I move to accept the report of bills paid,
How much?
the amount of $640 in building attention, $640,929.18.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion carries.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? We are out of here.